This last summer, the Lunduk Journal published an article entitled The Wiki Piggy Bank. Wikimedia grows rich as Wikipedia donations are used for political causes. And we went into details. I tore through every 990 and IRS form and annual reports, and we pulled out the spreadsheets, and we really dug into everything going on with Wikipedia and Wikimedia. And I'll tell you what, when it comes to sketchiness in terms of how finances are used in a foundation, Wikimedia is up there. I mean, in an intense way. Well, now, Wikimedia has unveiled their annual report for the last year, and holy smokes, did they make a lot of money, a ton of money. And they are paying their executives an absolutely astronomical amount. So I'm going to read some of this article to you. I just published an article about it entitled Wikimedia Profit, Assets, and Executive Wages Explode in 2023. And yet Wikipedia claims to desperately need your donations. I'm going to read some of this to you. I may read all of it to you, I don't know. I'm just going to go along with it. If you want the full article with all the pictures and the links, I provide sources for everything. This is not an opinion-y piece. This is just diving really deep into all the numbers with spreadsheets and everything. You can link to all of it. Have a great time and really check it out. It is astonishing to me. I mean, I know it gets said too much, but shocking. I mean, holy heavens, it's off the charts. So I'm going to read some of this to you now. I've got some commentary I would like to add. That's not so much factual as it is just my personal opinion overlaid onto everything else. And I shall continue now. The Wikimedia Foundation, the organization which runs and controls Wikipedia, has just published their annual financial report for the current year, and they made a mountain of money. Revenue is up. Total assets are up. Everything with Wikimedia is up, including salaries for their executives in an extreme way. Holy heavens, is it big. At this point, they are Scrooge McDuck swimming through the money in their vault. Yet, if you go to wikipedia.org right now, you will be told with a great deal of urgency and alarm that, quote, it will soon be too late to help us, and that they desperately need you to please give. So, yeah, that screenshot there, by the way, is from, like, the moment I wrote this article. It's ridiculous. Let's take a quick tour of Wikimedia's current financials, shall we? To see exactly how rich they are and how they truly are using those donations, and exactly how rich their executives are growing, because it's a lot of money. All right, to start with, how much money does Wikimedia have on hand as of the current filings in 2023? The answer is a lot. A whole heck of a lot. Over $250 million. On hand. That's in assets. That's in assets. And that's just at first glance. In fact, the deeper you dig, the more money you find. Here's a screenshot of some of their yearly financials showing significant growth year on year. And as of 2023, Wikimedia has, as reported assets, over $250 million US. Now let's look at that growth over time to get an idea of the trajectory of Wikimedia, including how all of that income is used. Here it is. Here's a chart that I put together. That is the Wikimedia Foundation yearly financials from 2015 to present. And you'll note that blue line there. For those of you listening to the audio podcast, go watch the video, or even better, just follow along with the article at lunduk.locals.com. That blue line there is their total assets, how much money they've got, or how much investments they have, right? Just assets. That red line represents their wages. And we'll go into that more in a minute because, notice it's going up. Now, what's interesting is, and then the yellow is the awards and grants, and the green at the very bottom, you can barely see it, is their server hosting. And that server hosting actually encompasses a lot more than just server hosting. So a few things worth noting from this data. First, the total assets, including cash on hand, is growing at a steady and rapid rate. It's over $250 million. It's a lot of money for Wikipedia. Wages are rising rapidly, and now awards and grants has stayed roughly steady. It goes up a little bit here and down a little bit there, but notice it actually stays kind of steady, right? Their hosting costs, which includes the actual running of Wikipedia sites, hardware, electricity, connectivity, operations, including some wages are in there, has risen slightly and is now around $3 million per year. But none of this tells the whole story, because Wikimedia has another completely separate financial entity where it stores funds. That is known as the Wikimedia endowment. So there's the foundation and the endowment. Now, the endowment, which is run and managed by the Tides Foundation, which is a specifically political advocacy and lobbying organization. To be clear, the Tides Foundation does not do things that are not political. It only does political things, and only in one segment of politics, right? It's not across the board. It's very, very specific in their ideology, right? That's all that they do. They don't do other things. So it currently, that endowment, run and managed by Tides, has over $114 million in assets. Here's the current report from the Tides Foundation. I link to it all here and provide the screenshot in the article. And when you add together the assets of both the Wikimedia Foundation and the Tides managed Wikimedia endowment, the total funds tops out at roughly $368 million US, over $1/3 billion. Which begs the question, if Wikimedia stopped asking for donations right now and lived entirely on the funds and assets that they had available through both the foundation and the endowment, roughly how long could they continue to host and operate Wikipedia? This is a fair question to ask, considering how desperate their claims are that they are about to disappear off the face of the earth. They need your donations. Well, by my calculations, it's roughly 119 years, give or take. I mean, if we account for a little bit of overhead and whatnot, we might be able. You could even chop that in half and say 60 years. But really, if you're a lean and mean, svelte organization and you keep the server hosting costs, hardware, bandwidth, operations, people, all of it at roughly the same as what Wikipedia currently spends, you're looking at about 119 years without taking a single penny in donations from anyone. 119 years. Even if you say that my calculations are wildly inaccurate, and you say no way, their hosting costs are gonna be twice what they are now. Okay, 60 years instead of 120 years. It'll be 60 years. It's a long time. They have runway for miles. Now, let's talk about the salary for a minute here. We know that the income and assets of the Wikimedia Foundation is growing rapidly. So let's talk about how that money is specifically spent, right? So hosting costs have remained pretty steady. They went up a tiny bit, but they've remained pretty steady. Same with awards and grants. But you know what expenditures have been going up crazy rapidly? Wages. Wages have been shooting up through the roof, and a huge chunk of that increase is going directly to the executive team, an obscene increase in their executive team income. The Wikimedia, I want to be clear about this, the Wikimedia Foundation does not disclose the wages of their executive team until they are forced to do so by the IRS. Meaning that when they roll out their annual report, they do not include this data. We only get this data when it is published by the IRS in previous years' Form 990 filings, which every nonprofit and foundation have to file with the Internal Revenue Service. As of right now, that 990 for the last year is not yet available. It always lags behind because government goes slow and the foundations go slow and everyone drags their feet. That just always happens. So we have their yearly annual report showing us the increase in assets and everything else, but we don't know what the current wages are for their executive team. What we do know is what's happened in the previous years, so 2020 and 2021, that will show us the current rate of increase. And based on what we know of Wikimedia's hiring and what we know of the absolutely skyrocketing, let's look at this chart real quick again, the skyrocketing red line there that continues to go up at the same rate roughly as it did before, we can assume that we are seeing similar increases in wages of their executive teams this year as opposed to last year and the year before. So here's a chart. Here's an exact screenshot actually of the 990 IRS filing forms from 2020. Right? In here, we can look at it and see, okay, the executive director made $400,000. The CTO made $319,000. The chief operating officer made $314,000, right? All very good wages, but that's what they made in 2020. Now, here is the exact same filing from the very next year, 2021. The executive director made $789,000. The chief operating officer, $500,000. So the executive director went from $406,000 to $789,000. Her salary almost doubled in 1 year. A similar story for the chief operating officer, who went from $314,000 to $503,000. I mean, it just shot through the roof. And in general, raises of roughly $100,000 across the board for the entire executive team. And this is in 1 year in a nonprofit foundation that claims almost every day to be about to go out of business. Now, what did the 2022 wages look like? I am excited to see. We probably won't know for several months when the IRS releases their 990 as well. So what can we learn from all of this? I got some takeaways. The first and most obvious takeaway is that when Wikimedia claims to be in desperate need of funding to continue operating Wikipedia, they are telling us a lie. Provably so. They are not in any way desperate. Now, I'm not saying they can't ask for donations. By all means, ask for donations. And by all means, if you like the work that they do, feel free, donate. I'm not going to tell anyone not to. However, when they make claims, as they do repeatedly all the time, that make it appear as though they are on the verge of death, they are about to go out of business. Help Wikipedia survive. Send us dollars. We need dollars. They are lying. It is a lie. It is a bold-faced lie. It's such an extreme lie that it's almost comical how false that is. And they have to know it because they know what they're paid. They know what their books say. Now, despite what we know, there are a lot of questions, right? There's a lot of questions that we don't have answers to. First of all, will the executive team continue to increase their salaries year on year in such extreme ways? We don't know. We don't know what happened this last year because we don't have their 990 filing yet. Now, could they publish their 990? Yes. Have they? No. They've chosen not to. This is pretty regular. This is a lot of foundations do this sort of thing where they'll show their executive summaries and they'll do their annual reports, but they won't actually publish their 990s because almost invariably the stuff they don't want you to see is in those IRS filings. Where the money goes, how much their executives make, exactly how much they paid in taxes, exactly what their assets are, what major large-scale contractors that they spent money on. Like, these sorts of things all end up being very important, and they don't necessarily want you to know that. Of course, the Lunduk Journal digs into all that because that's what we do. And we're pretty much the only news outlet on planet Earth that does that anymore, which is ridiculous. But we will continue to do that. And as soon as those are available, we'll go into them. Second, with a total known war chest of over $1/3 billion and incredibly low overhead to continue Wikipedia operating, how is Wikimedia going to spend that money? Right? Because, think about this logically here for a second. They can continue to give their executive teams wildly lavish raises. At the current staggering rate of growth of assets on hand and growing executive pay, they can give their executives $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 raises every single year for a very, very, very long time. And still not really even have to blink at it. And just the same, even if they do that, they'll have a huge amount of money. They'll have, $250 million, $300 million, and growing dollars available. Just in the endowment, there's currently $114 million just in the endowment fund alone. So what exactly are those funds going to be used for? Exactly. Because when Wikipedia says, the Wikimedia endowment is there just to make sure that Wikipedia can continue operating, that has to be a lie. It has to be, because there's so much money in both the foundation and the endowment. They can keep Wikipedia running for a long time without bringing in any more money. They can keep Wikipedia running without the endowment. And the endowment sits within the control right now, according to Tides. They still have control of it, according to Tides. They're the ones who just issued the most latest report from this year. What's it being used for? Right? And foundations and companies don't take $100 million and just let it sit there. They invest it in some ways. They use it for something. They use it as collateral for things. They pay awards and grants to things that they like. Who knows? But it's used for something. What is it used for? The Wikimedia endowment is not saying. The few details they post on their website are minuscule at best, and it seems like no matter who you reach out to, you do not get answers. Third, will the public, this is more of a let's think in the clouds for a moment question, but will the public, meaning me, you, and everyone else, continue to donate to Wikipedia when we all know how their donations are used? When you know that your donation is not really going to the running of Wikipedia, certainly not this year, next year, or the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 decades after that, what are you donating to? Are you donating to the $700,000 a year salary of the CEO or of the executive director? What are you donating to? Now, again, I'm not telling people they can't donate, but what are we donating to? And the more this message comes out, the more people talk about what these funds are used for in Wikimedia. How will that impact the donations? I'm really interesting to see. One thing is very certain. The Lunduk Journal will be eagerly awaiting those next IRS filings because holy heavens, I think they're going to be good. I think they're going to be really good. It's one of the most boring yet satisfying parts of my job is digging through the financial records of foundations and companies. Because 9 times out of 10, they're pretty boring. There's a lot of foundations. I talked before about organizations like GNOME. The GNOME Foundation is so boring to cover because they spend their money on exactly what they say they spend it on. They don't bring that much in, and they're transparent about it, and they spend like almost every dollar they bring in. And you can disagree with what they spend it on. You can think they'd put it to better use. That you can disagree with their other decisions, and that's all fine. but it's all very transparent and open, and they're doing what they say they're doing, right? And so I respect that, and it's very boring. But then Wikipedia comes along, and Wikimedia, with their foundation and their endowment and their huge war chests. And oh my, the more you dig, the more it causes your left eyebrow to raise up. And it is, yes, the spreadsheets that have to be put together in order to analyze all this data are massive and tedious, but very, very rewarding. Very rewarding indeed. So what will we see in the coming year from Wikimedia? I am very curious. I'm curious about the next 990, and I'm really curious if people, as they see what Wikimedia does with the money, if they'll continue to donate. Anyway, you can go read the full article over at lunduk.locals.com. There's lots of links over there. If you want to support the work that we do, go to lunduk.com. There's links to everything, audio, podcast, RSS feeds, how to subscribe to multiple sites, how to support the work that the Lunduk Journal does. Some of the only actual tech journalism that's happening in the world right now. Holy heavens. It is amazing. We don't take any money from big tech. We run no advertisements. What we speak is purely the truth, highly researched. And that means that some of these articles get real in-depth. And when the Lunduk Journal says an opinion on something, you know that it is an honest opinion. Maybe you agree with it, maybe you don't, but you know that it's honest. And it is very rare that you can say that about any news agency nowadays. The tech news agencies, oh my gosh, half of them are written by AI now. That's not a joke. All right, everybody. With that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, nerds and nerdettes, I do declare end broadcast.